Good morning, Magic players and card collectors of all kinds, and welcome back to Super Deck Sunday on a Monday. Yes, if you saw my post yesterday, unfortunately, I had to film this today instead of yesterday. I'm gonna say what happened yesterday now, and I want to put it out there. I'm gonna clip this so that I can put part of this onto TikTok because I want to explain. Just because I really want people to be able to be aware of things like this, and I don't know. I don't really know what I want exactly out of this situation, other than I don't want my dog to be freaked out again. So I do know that at least, but basically, in a nutshell, what happened yesterday was, first off, my dad came home. If you saw my video from Saturday, you know that I was super excited on Saturday because I had the whole day to myself and it was really nice and relaxing. And then Saturday evening, my dad came home after I'd already gone to bed, so I didn't see him until the next morning. And I don't know whether I did something or whether something happened with him and my brother or what. But he had this massive chip on his shoulder all day yesterday and was just really ignorant, and I didn't have the patience for dealing with that. So I wasn't going to even attempt to try and record in the house. And my neighbor outside next door has started a chair building project where he's building those deck chairs that have the long wooden backs. So he's constantly making noise out there, so it's becoming really hard to record outside too at my house. So essentially the only place I can record is in the car. But the problem with that is, in order to be able to record in the car, I have to make sure certain conditions are met, especially if Kaiba's with me. I have to make sure the car is cool enough for him, because especially as we get into the summer months, I don't want him to be sitting in here, say at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and the sun's beating down on us and he gets really sick or something. That's the worst thing that I would ever want to happen. And of course, all my videoing and scheduling and stuff, if you've ever, I hope that it comes across this way, but I personally don't want my pug to feel like I'm forcing him to participate if he doesn't want to participate. I often you'll see me put in little bloopers and stuff where it's Kaiba didn't want to do this, and it's well, it happens. I'm just not I don't want to be the kind of person who forces my dog necessarily to do content if they're not interested in doing content. And I don't mean that in a negative way towards anybody who centers their world around their content. A lot of people get their dogs to be really into it. Kaiba is just very temperamental sometimes, is the point I'm trying to make. If he's into it, he's into it. And if he's not into it, he's really not into it. And yesterday morning, it was hard to get him into the park trip video in the first place. It took us you're going to see later on when I show you the park trip video tomorrow, but there's going to be a clip where we're standing around the entrance of the park. And essentially, after that clip, when I stopped recording, we stood at that entrance for another 10-15 minutes because he just was not into going anywhere. He didn't know what he wanted to do. He was just really upset because of how my dad had been with him that morning, and with me, of course, as well. And so it just really wasn't the best day in the first place. And so I really probably should have just tried not to record Super Deck Sunday anyways, but we got back to the car and I thought, you know what? It's not that hot yet. I can park us in the shade and we can do the Super Deck Sunday video and it'll be nice. And so I moved the car over to the shade and I was sitting there trying to record. And a person came up to the car who, for lack of a better term, because I'm just really not sure what the politically correct term is anymore, but a person who was down on their luck, essentially, and was asking for some support financially, and I didn't have anything on me, and I explained, I'm just really not in the position to donate. I gave them some food that I had in the car, but they seen, obviously, that I had my camera out, and that I was or my phone out in the camera holder. When I record in the car, I put my phone into this thing. So you can obviously tell that I'm trying to do something when I have this on. And this person, I guess, took that as like a hint that they should keep coming by the car to check and see if I had some cash or had something else that I could give them. And so throughout the video, they came and knocked on like the back window or the side window at least 3 times. I think it was even maybe 4 times before I actually lost my patience with the person. And then they continued to walk nearby the car for the rest of the video. And so by the time the 4th knocking on the window came around, or the 3rd, whichever it was, Kaiba was just really freaked out and upset because this person kept, invading our personal space essentially and disturbing us while we're trying to do our thing. And so he was really upset about it. And so ultimately I decided like whenever the person, even with the person just walking anywhere near the car, he was starting to freak out. It was just like, there was no point in trying to push the video at that point. He was just way too upset. And I thought about trying to drive to a different location or something like that, but there was just no real good places to record on a Sunday morning at the time when we finished up our park trips. Usually when we finish up our park trips, it's right around like 8 to 9 o'clock, somewhere in there. And especially if I do manage to record Super Deck Sunday, and I recorded maybe like 20 minutes of it before I decided we weren't going to try and push it any further. And so I think it was close to 9 by the time we were leaving the park. And so of course, like, all the stores are starting to open and things like that, and there was just no good places that I could park with shade like it is here, and be sure that we weren't going to be disturbed. And so with that said, I'm really not sure if I'm going to keep recording Super Deck Sunday, to be honest, on Sundays. I might try to start recording it on a different day and still post it on the Sunday. The downside to that being Kaiba can't participate in Super Deck Sunday anymore, if that's the case, unless my dad isn't home and I can record at home. But aside from that, otherwise, and that of course depends on space on my phone too, which I really need to clean up some videos on here and post some of the older stuff that I've recorded of Kaiba and things, so I can like clear up some memory. But probably could delete some of the games on here too that I don't really play. Anyways, moral of the story is I'm really nervous about taking Kaiba to the park right now a little bit, and recording things and stuff, but I'm going to give it another go on Sunday and see how it goes, because I don't want this first incident. This is the only incident we've really ever had like this. We've had some minor issues before when we're walking around and somebody might approach us, but we've never actually had somebody like come up to the car repeatedly like that and disturb us the way they were. And I feel really bad for the person because I wish I could do more to help them, but at the same time, I'm really upset with the way they upset Kaiba, and that's why I didn't even try to record an introduction for the Kaiba Photo of the Month challenge with him awake. I waited until he had fallen asleep, and I just kind of recorded some of him sleeping, which I don't think that came through as clearly as I wanted it to, so I apologize for that. But I basically just really felt that it was the best option to try and keep it to a minimum with regards to him. And so, yeah, like I say, we're going to try the park trip video on Sunday next week, and hopefully things will go well. And if they do, then we can keep doing park trips throughout the week and recording small videos of those for you guys. But if we have another incident like that, I might have to try and find somewhere else to take Kaiba, and that's going to really suck because he really likes that fur group, like that group of fur friends. With that said, like I said, if I stop recording Super Deck Sunday there, maybe that'll be enough. So, yeah. Anyways, wow, I almost ranted for 10 minutes, so that'll be perfect for TikTok. Then that means I have just enough time to get this out and show it off. So, today's deck for Super Deck Sunday, just to entice you guys who are on the TikTok, and we're going to be opening this pack of Outlaws of Thunder Junction as well, includes all of my really pretty lands. So I'm just going to show off some of the really pretty lands real fast for the TikTokers, and then I'm going to come back and go through them a little slower afterwards. There. that should be good for them. Okay, so let's get into this deck proper. This is by far my most expensive deck. I looked it up. Well, I put it into Architect, and the lands alone, which I will post a screenshot of over here, cost over $300 if you wanted to assemble the land base that I have in this deck. The deck combined, which I will now post over here again, is over $500 US, closer to 600, which ends up being like close to 900 Canadian, and that's insane. So yeah, definitely my most valuable deck in terms of finances. But it's also just a deck that I really enjoy the heck out of because it is a 5-color dragon deck that does not include Dragon and does not include Myriam. So the two like main dragons that everybody throws into a 5-color dragon deck, I refuse to run. Partially because I don't have copies of them. I won't say that it's not just that. But I really think that it's more fun this way with the deck the way it is. And surprisingly, even though there is a tutor in this, somehow it still only counts as bracket 2. I personally think it's a bracket 3 deck, in my opinion. But you guys can let me know what you think when we get finished with it. To start us off, I have our commander, Ramos the Dragon Engine. I really like Ramos. I think he's a fun commander. I do have a couple backup options in this deck, but this one is the one I typically run. You get a flying 4/4 for 6, and then whenever you cast this spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on him for each color. Whenever you cast a spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on him for each of that spell's colors, pardon me. So when you cast the next instant or sorcery afterwards, if it has 3 colors, you put 3 +1/+1 counters on. Then you can remove 5 counters at any time, but only once per turn. And then you can add Wooburg twice. So that's insanely good in this deck because it gives you a lot of extra mana for summoning big dragons. He is a little expensive to get on board, but I really like Ramos as a commander. I have several tokens as well. I've got the Reliquary Dragon and a regular dragon, treasure, food, dragon, another dragon. The warriors on the back here aren't so important. I don't think I have anything that can actually play them. I do have something that can play the soldier, but not the 2/2. And then I've got a beast token, an egg token, and a dragon that is a red and black that I need to still get my hands on. I've not seen a copy of this token yet, but if I can pick one up, I would really love to. So, as I said, this is the deck with the most expensive mana base out of any of the mana bases that I own. And so we are going to do this very carefully and very thoroughly, and we are going to enjoy this. And my buddy Snoop is going to probably enjoy this even more. I'm just going to flip that over so that we don't reveal too much. And here we go. So, kicking us off, we've got the Fire Mountain Eye of the dragon. And then I've got one of the flashy ones, the Edge of Eternity's mountain, and another one that's flashy. So two hollow dragon shadows, an eye, and an Edge of Eternity's mountain. And that's basically going to be what I do for most of the basics, except I don't have all the eyes. I only have 2 of them. But I have a Shadow Island. That one's not hollow. Edge of Eternity's Island. And Shadow Island that is hollow. Plains that is hollow. Edge of Eternity's hollow. And then a plain shadow that's not hollow. I've got 2 hollows for the swamp, plus the Edge of Eternity's swamp. I love the artwork on all these cards. And then I've got a hollow forest, Edge of Eternity's forest, hollow, regular forest, and an eye forest. So I have like the green eye and the red eye, which I think is kind of neat because a lot of the creatures in this are green and red. So good to have both those. Then we have the Path of Ancestry, a Rupture Spire, Command Tower, Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon, which is beautiful. Beautiful copy of this card. I'm not typically going to do that bottom part, to be honest, because I already have some lands that get sacrificed in this deck, so I don't want to do too many of those. For example, this beautiful Misty Rainforest. I actually have an old Wooded Foothills too. Technically, it was printed in 2024. When did I pull this? I don't remember pulling this ever. Came out of Kaldheim? Interesting. Grasslands? I would love to replace the Grasslands, the Bad River, and the Rocky Tar Pit with the other 3 fetch lands that I'm missing from the set of 5 that I would ideally want in these colors. I don't know what those ones are, but if I ever get those ones, they're definitely going into this deck. And that will definitely increase this deck's value. Next up, we have a Jetmir's Garden in full art holo. And we have a Zitora's Proving Ground, regular, but also holo. Regular art, I meant. We have a Haunted Mire, a Molten Tributary, and a Cinderglade, and a Canopy Vista. Those 4 are all in there because those ones I don't have the Shuck lands for. And I say that because the next 4 lands, Breeding Pool, Hollowed Fountain, Blood Crypt, which I'm going to replace this Blood Crypt with the one that Sho is sending me. Because Sho Minucci is sending me that really cool bundle for being the winner of the 200 subscriber giveaway. And in it, there's a Blood Crypt that I think is much more flavorful than this one. It has like a house that's on fire and smoldering. And I think that's just really good for a dragon deck to have. But I like this art too, don't get me wrong. And then I have a Watery Grave as well. Very, very nice artwork on that Watery Grave. I like that one actually a lot. Those 2 came out of the unset, Unfinity, that's what it was. So, that is our mana base. Our very, very, very expensive mana base. Which I am now going to put back into the deck box. By the way, quick shout out about this deck box. I really like this Game Genic deck box, except for one thing. This token is, or this plastic part is really, really hard to slide in and out. Like really, really hard. Like I'm trying my best and I can't get it out right now. I can do it here or there, but that's the main reason why I don't keep my commander in there, is because I had the hardest time trying to slide this thing in and out. But otherwise, I love that this deck box comes with a dice tray, which is fantastic for my dragons deck. And it's very solidly constructed. And I love the magnets that go all the way around, but can actually come down and then wrap around the bottom so that you don't have the flaps sitting out in your play zone. Very cool deck box indeed. This is the only one of this that I own. So that's why I made sure that I put a very special deck into it. And you'll notice that I also have very special sleeves for this very special deck. I splurged last year, or the year before. Splurged the year before, and I got the beautiful Christmas dragon sleeves, which I think are just gorgeous for this deck. So, yeah. Alright, let's get into the creatures next. So the creatures are going to come into two piles. I just got to separate those piles again because they got put back together yesterday when we were trying to get ready to go. I have the non-dragon pile, and I have the dragon pile. It's really sad that Kaiba can't be here for this, because this is literally, and this is what the reason why I'm calling this episode Kaiba's MTG deck, because my pug Kaiba is, if you've never seen the show, his name is from the show Yu-Gi-Oh! And my favorite character in Yu-Gi-Oh! Was Seto Kaiba. So that's why I named my pug after him. And so Seto Kaiba in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is famous, of course, for loving dragon cards. Like, all his favorite cards are the dragons, especially the blue eyes white dragons. So, that's why this is Kaiba's magic deck. So I've got a tiller engine, which is nice because it can help me avoid having to pay for the shock issues, and it can also put all my fetch lands into play untapped. Granted, it's the only card that can do that, so chances of me pulling it in a game aren't as likely as you might want them to be. But it is nice to include as an option, I feel. And it has been very useful when it does go off in the right way. I have a wonderful mana dork in here. A Somber Walled Sage. 2 and a green for a 0/1. Taps for 3 mana of any one color, sorry. And you use that mana to cast creature spells, which obviously are going to be dragons. For the most part. Temur Battlecrier is a 4/3 for green, blue, and red. And during your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater, which, when you have a whole bunch of dragons on board, is going to be pretty much everything. Surrak Dragonclaw, technically not a dragon, yes, but he has dragon in his name, so I thought it was a good include. Plus, it has flash, it can't be countered, and all your creature spells cannot be countered as soon as it's on board. So as long as I can find a way to keep him from being destroyed, all my dragons come in without being able to be countered, which is fantastic when you're paying like 6 mana for a dragon. It also gives every other creature you control trample. He doesn't give it to himself, which is kind of unfortunate when he's a 6/6, but chances are you probably don't want to swing with him even though he is a 6/6 because of the fact that he's giving everything else the counterable status. Vizier of the Menagerie is fun. 3 and a green for a 3/4. You can look at the top card of your library anytime, cast creature spells from the top of your library, and spend any mana to cast creature spells. So all of my lands will tap for whatever color I want them to tap for, provided that he's on board, which makes it really easy to get out my dragons when I want them to. Rivaz of the Claw is a fantastic mana dork as well in this deck. 1 a black and a red for a 3/3 with Menace. Taps to add 2 mana of any combination of colors, but you have to use it to cast a dragon creature spell, so it won't work on any of these other ones, but it will work on that big stack of dragons. Once during each of your turns, you can cast a dragon spell from your graveyard, which is the main reason why he's in this deck. And then whenever you cast a dragon creature spell from your graveyard, it gains when this creature dies, exile it. Now, I do have a workaround built into this deck, but again, it is a one-off card, so like the Tiller engine, chances are that I probably won't have both out at the same time, but you never know. There is a decent amount of card draw in this deck too, so I mean, it's plausible. Oop, was that 2 cards or 1? That was 1. Okay. Dragon Master Outcast is fantastic for this deck. As you saw, I have a ton of lands. I believe there's 36 in total. So even if you take away the 5 fetch lands, it still leaves me with 31 lands. So chances are I'm going to have 6 or more. Which means each of my upkeeps, I get to make a 5/5 dragon as long as this thing stays on the field. This is why the egg tokens are in there. Atla Palani Nest Tender is fantastic for this deck because it lets me Cheeto dragons for free. I pay 2, tap, I create an egg, and then I need to find a way to get that egg to die. Once that egg dies, I can reveal cards from the top of my library until I reveal a creature card, and that card goes onto the battlefield and the rest go onto the bottom in a random order. Now, how do I get rid of the eggs, you ask? Well, that's where this dragon comes in, and it's the only dragon that I put into this pile, so technically it should be in the other pile, which means this pile should be 1 card smaller, but Immerstrom Predator is perfect to combine with this card because for 2 a black and a red, I get a 3/3 with flying. Whenever it becomes tapped, I exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard and I put a +1/+1 counter on it. So basically if it attacks, it gets bigger. In addition to that though, I can sacrifice another creature and then this thing gains indestructible until end of turn and I tap it. So what I actually want to do is I want to use Nest Tender to put an egg onto the field. Then I want to use this thing's ability to sacrifice that egg, tap this, give it a +1/+1 counter, and fetch a free dragon. If I can do that once per turn, I can get through my deck a little bit quicker, and I can get some really insane stuff for basically free. essentially 2 is it's not free, it's 2, but I mean it's still close enough to being free compared to what dragon spells cost. Sarkhan Dragon Ascendant is the final card. I do not have the really special treatment one, but I still love this version. I think it's very pretty. When Sarkhan enters, you may behold a dragon. So essentially you have to reveal one in your hand, or if you have one on the field, you can behold the one on the field. If you do, you get to create a treasure token. Excuse me. And whenever a dragon you control enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on him, then he becomes a dragon, and he gets flying until end of turn. What's nice about that ability is it's not a once per turn ability, so while he can't become like double dragon or get double flying, he can get multiple +1/+1 counters in a turn. So if he's on the field, say for example with Dragon Master Outcast, then he automatically will get to become a dragon at the beginning of my turn as soon as that token comes into play. And then any extra creatures that I put onto the battlefield will just put additional +1/+1 counters onto him at that point, which is really nice. Really, really nice. Indeed, indeed. This is my dragons pile. This is my dragons pile. Okay. Let's start doing some dragons. I'm going to move the vampire dragon back over here because I want it to be in the pile with the proper dragon now. I just wanted to show you the combo earlier. Fire Spitter Whelp is on my pile because it is a perfect card for this deck. 2 in a red for a 2/2. Whenever you cast and it has flying, of course. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell or a dragon spell, this thing will deal 1 damage to each opponent. And that's, again, not a once per turn. So we've got all of these spells over here that are either enchantments, artifacts, sorceries, or instants. And then in addition to that, we have all these dragons. So basically, at least once per turn, I'm probably dealing 1 damage to everybody if this stays on the field, which is nice. Fledgling Dragon. It has Threshold. It's a 2/2 with flying for 2 and 2 red, which is a little more expensive than the Fire Whelp or Fire Spitter Whelp. But if I have 7 or more cards in my graveyard, it becomes a 5/5. And it gets the ability where I can pay a red to give it a +1/+0 until end of turn, so I can boost its attack even further. That is pretty cool. Plus, I love the artwork on this one. It's one of my favorite dragon artworks, to be honest. I think it's very stylish and classic. White Dragon. I have the full art, gorgeous card here. 4 and 2 white for a 4/4 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, tap a target creature an opponent controls, and it doesn't untap during your next untap step. Clarion Conqueror. I love this guy because he is a beautiful double-sided card. There are not many double-sided cards I actually really enjoy because, well, actually, no. Let's not say it that way. There are not a lot of double-sided cards that I only enjoy because of the artwork. But this is definitely one of them. I usually play with this side face up, but today I'm feeling like I want to put the baby side out. So I'm going to flip it around. So for 2 and a white, you get a 3/3 with flying, and it stops the activated abilities of all artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers, which is fun for me because I mentioned this yesterday and I mention it regularly, but I'm not a huge fan of trying to cope with planeswalkers. It's probably one of the hardest things for me to do in Commander because everybody, of course, does a really solid job of protecting their planeswalkers so that they can get their final triggers off usually. So that is just a really nice way to prevent anybody from being able to use a planeswalker. And since I don't have one in this deck, it won't bother me any. It will shut down my creature's abilities and artifact abilities, which can be an issue when it comes to things like this. Flying Rapacious Dragon enters the battlefield, it gives you 2 treasure tokens. So I wouldn't be able to sacrifice those treasure tokens as long as this thing's out, unfortunately. But, again, it is only 1 card in the deck, so I have a feeling that chances are it won't be out as often to be an issue as I worry about sometimes. This one's 4 in a red for a 3/3 of flying, and that gives me the 2 treasure tokens that I mentioned earlier. Armament Dragon is fun because for 3, a white, a black, and a green, you get a 3/4 of flying, and it gives 3 +1/+1 counters to 1 creature potentially, or you can split them up among 1, 2, or 3 creatures, however you want at that point. So 3 creatures get 1 +1/+1 counter each. 1 creature gets all of them. You get the idea, obviously. These are fun because they count technically as sorcery or instant cards as well as creatures, which is kind of nice. They remind me a little bit of pendulum monsters from Yu-Gi-Oh, to be honest. They're also like the adventure cards, but what I like about these ones is instead of putting my card into exile after I cast it, I get to put this card back into the deck if I do the sorcery ability. And so I can replay that sorcery over and over and over again, as long as I never choose to summon the creature. Not that the creatures are bad. First off, we got 4 and a green for a 3/3, gives you flying, with flying, sorry. And when this creature enters, you get to destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. That's pretty solid. On the flip side, pay 1 and a black, destroy target creature with power 3 or less. And again, that would go back into my deck afterwards, which is really nice, and get shuffled. Whirlwing Stormbrood, 4 and a blue for a 4/3 with flash flying, and you can cast sorcery spells and dragon spells as though they had flash. So this is one of the ones that I probably want to put onto the board. Although the Omen ability is still pretty kick-ass. For 2 and a green, you get to put 3+1/+1 counters on a creature you control. Feral Deathgorger, 5 and a black for a 3/5 with flying and death touch. So obviously going to be a fan of this because you know I love death touch. And when it enters, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. So it does limit you to only being able to target one person, but you still get rid of 2 potential hazards from the deck, which is nice. Or from the game, I mean. And the Omen ability, pay 1 and a black, and you can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and then draw a card. Digger Island Dragon, this one primarily is in here for the Omen ability, but it does have flying in Ward 2, and it's a 4/4 for 6, so it's not terrible. 5 and a blue being the 6. But for 1 and a blue, you can tap a target creature and then draw a card, which is pretty cool. And instant speed, so you can stop people from attacking you with something in particular right before combat, which is nice. Sagu Wildling is another one that kind of actually could be in here for both reasons, but it's mainly in here for the sorcery. For 1 green, you can search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then you shuffle this thing as well. And then for 4 and a green, you get a 3/3 of flying, and when it enters, you get 3 life. Which, as I said, with regards to the Rivaz, there is 1 card in this deck that is going to allow me to do a bit of flickering. So some of these cards, it potentially might be beneficial to have. For example, the Wildling, I can flicker it once per turn and get 3 life. That's not a bad deal. And finally, the last one with the Omen ability. Yes. Okay. I always forget if there's 5 or 6. Or 7. 4 and a black for a 4/4 with flying. Ward, pay 2 life. I kind of like that. And when it enters, remove all counters, from up to 1 target creature. I don't really care for that as much because if I'm the only one with +1/+1 counters on my creature, for example, I have to pick a creature and negate all its counters, which kind of sucks. On the other hand, the Omen is really nice. 1 and a white. Target creature gets +2/+2, lifelink, and hexproof until end of turn. So that's a pretty solid attack or defense ability. Where did I put my first few dragons? Did I put them back into the deck box? I did. Okay. Next up, Boulderborn Dragon. Flying Vigilance. Whenever it attacks, you get to surveil 1, so it's a nice little way to get through your deck a bit quicker. And I mean, for 5, it's not a bad card. Plus, I love the artwork. I love the artwork on all these like dragon border artwork cards. Like they're some of my, I think they're my favorite art treatment card style. And I try to include as many of those as possible into this deck for that reason. Because I definitely love that art style. Protector of the Waste is up next. 4 and 2 white, for a 5/5 with flying. When it enters or becomes monstrous, you exile 2 artifacts and or enchantments controlled by different players. So whereas the one card made me target one player specifically, this card forces me to pick 2 different people. And what I like but I don't necessarily have to pick anybody if I really don't want to, which is kind of fun too. What I also like about this though is, first off, monstrosity. Let me just quickly explain. If I pay 4 and a white, I get to put 3+1/+1 counters on this, making it an 8/8, and it becomes monstrous at that point, which would trigger this the second time. But as I said, I do have something that will let me flicker cards. So if I can flicker this one repeatedly, I can keep knocking off artifacts and enchantments from the board throughout the game. Savage Ventmaw for a green and a red for a 4/4 flying, and whenever it attacks, you get to add 3 red and 3 green to your mana pool and you don't lose that mana between steps and phases. So essentially the goal is to attack with this, and then you get 6 extra mana to spend in turn phase 2, or main phase 2, sorry, on any extra creatures you might want to summon, or any extra sorceries or instants, etc. that you want to cast. I like that a lot. Acid Spewer Dragon is a new include to the deck, and one that I'm very fond of. 5 and a black for 3/3, but if you pay 3 and play it face down, and then pay an extra black later, you get to flip this up and put a +1/+1 counter on it, making it a 4/4. It does have flying and Death Touch, which again, Death Touch is totally my jam. But the best part about this card is if you actually flip it face up, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each other dragon you control. So essentially, he gives your entire board a boost. Daragaz, the Igniter. 3, a black, a red, and a green for a 6/6 with flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 and a red. If you do, you choose a color, and then that player reveals their hand. And for every card in their hand that has that color, they take a damage. So if they had like 4 white cards and you picked white, they take 4 damage, which is pretty solid. I really love this card in particular because this was a gift from Anthony. If you've been around on the channel for a long time, you know who I'm talking about. But if not, way back in the day when we first started this channel, I had a play along series where I was actually like playing card commander one-on-one with Anthony, and we were recording our games for the channel. And he gave me this card, and I've always wanted to put it into a deck, couldn't find a way to fit it in, and I'm so happy that it goes into this dragon deck really nicely. Especially because if I have Savage Vetmaw, for example, with this guy, I already have his cost built into this one as soon as I attack. So that is really nice. Broodmate Tyrant, 4 black, red, and green. 5/5, flying. When he enters, he makes an extra 5/5 dragon creature token with flying. But the reason why I include him in this deck specifically is because of the Encore. So when he dies, at any point on a future turn of mine, because it has to be sorcery speed, I'm pretty sure, I can pay 1 extra mana in addition to his usual mana cost to play the Encore ability, which means I get to create 3 copies of him that are going to be coming out to attack my opponents. And each of those copies is going to make an extra copy of the dragon. So I end up with 6 bodies for 1 extra mana. That is insanely good value, in my opinion. Lathlis, Dragon Queen, 4 and 2 red for a 6/6 with flying. Whenever a non-token dragon enters the battlefield, I get to make a 5/5 dragon creature token with flying. And I can pay 1 and a red to give all my dragons +1/+0 until end of turn, which is insanely good. So basically, all the ones that have that ability that I can do it for just on them, probably never going to use it on that. Probably just going to use it on the Queen and boost everybody universally. Gold Dust Triad, 4 and a red for 4/3. Flying Myriad, which means when this one attacks, I create a token for each of my opponents that I'm not attacking currently. So like when I attack, say, my opponent across from me, I'm going to make 2 copies of this that are tapped and attacking my other 2 opponents. And whenever this thing deals combat damage to a player, I make a treasure token. So those tokens will go away at the end of combat, unlike the tokens that the Broodmate makes. But that is just too good not to include for all the treasure tokens that you can possibly get. Atarka is kind of the best card in this deck, possibly, though. Atarka World Render, 5 red and green for 6/4. Flying Trample, and whenever a dragon you control attacks, it gets double strike until end of turn. Which means all of my dragons automatically get a boost with this one on board, so I don't have to attack with this one if I don't want to, but obviously this one gives this ability to itself as well, so that makes it insanely useful. Steel Hellkite, flying. 2, to give it +1/+0 until end of turn. X, and destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or whose controller was dealt combat damage by this creature this turn. So if I attack you with this thing, which pay 6 and I get a 5/5 with flying, is pretty decent in the first place. But if I attack you and I actually deal damage to you, I can pay X mana and destroy all the things that are worth X on your board, which is crazy. And the reason why everybody hates that card. This is one of the potential backup commanders, 2-headed Hellkite. For 1, a white, a blue, a black, and a red, and a green. You get a 5/5 with flying, menace, haste, and whenever it attacks, you get to draw 2 cards. It does not have to actually deal combat damage, it just has to attack. That is fantastic value. And this is the other backup commander. Okagachi, Vengeful Kami, for 1 and Wooburg as well. You get a 6/6 with flying and trample. What I love about this one, and this is the second choice for me as a commander. My third choice would be this one because I feel like this one's just kind of a little mean to put as a commander, to be honest. But this one is fun. If you decide to attack me while this thing is out, then when I attack you the next turn and deal combat damage to you with this, I get to exile something you control. Except for a land. But I mean, that's just freaking crazy. It's like a permanent threat in my command zone, which I like a lot. But I'm still more fond of Ramos as a commander, just because Ramos feels like the least threatening of the 3 options, and the most likely that if I play it, somebody's going to let me keep it for a turn or 2. Okay, that is all the dragons. I forgot that this is actually instants that got separated from the sorceries. So, pardon me, the dragons pile was originally this big. Oh, sorry. The dragons pile is originally this big. There we go. Much better. Okay. Those are all the creatures. We do still have some very expensive cards coming up in this in the piles that you will see in the future, but we haven't quite got to those just yet. First, we got the sorceries and instants, and then we're going to do the enchantments and artifacts last, and you'll see some pretty cool stuff to finish out before we rip this pack. Lose focus for 1 and a blue. What I love about this counter spell is I can replicate it for an extra blue, so I can copy it over and over again for however many times I can pay the extra blue. And I counter target spell unless the controller pays 2. So basically I just stack that, and the controller has to pay like 6 or 8 or 10. And if you replicate it enough times to make sure they don't have enough mana to change your mind, or that they can't counter this themselves, then that's pretty solid. The other counter spell that I run is Whirlwind of Denial for a similar reason. 2 and a blue for each spell for each spell and ability your opponents control. Counter it unless its controller pays 4. So essentially whatever goes on the stack will all get countered unless the people who played it pay 4. I only have these 2 counter spells and no other ones, mainly because I wanted to have as many kick butt dragons in this deck as I could, because that's the Seto Kaiba way. Alesha's Legacy, 1 and a black. Target creature you control gains Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn. I also have Tamio's Safekeeping. Both of these are in here for the same reason. They give my creature Indestructible, which I like. This one also gives Hexproof and 2 life, which is also nice. Then I have a couple cards for dealing with some permanents. So I have a Beast Within, and I have an Inevitable Defeat. I really like this one. This is probably one of my favorite spells. I like the artwork on it a lot. So shout out to Christy Balanescu, because that is probably one of my favorite artworks from the Tarkir of Dragons set, in like the regular cards, not in the full art cards. Just to clarify that. But I still really do like this one. And I mean, you can exile target non-land permanent. Its controller loses 3 life, you gain 3 life. That is all the way around a solid card for 4. I have a couple cards to fetch me some lands. Nature's Lore. Search your library for a forest, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. And Farseek. Search your library for anything but a forest. Put it onto your battlefield, tapped, and shuffle. I like those 2 cards because they make me laugh every time I see them side by side. You can get a forest, you can get anything but a forest. I have Lie in Wait. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. This thing deals damage equal to that card's power to target creature. Pretty solid all around. And then the dragon token that I mentioned earlier that I'm trying to find, it goes with this, which is insanely cool. So, Wake the Dragon, 4 black and red. And then it has flashback 6 black and red. So you get to create a 6/6 black and red dragon creature token with flying menace, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, gain control of target artifact that player controls. So essentially, you get to steal everybody's stuff with this, which is really cool. And since it has flashback, you can actually end up making 2 of those tokens, potentially. Even cooler. Next up is the tutor that I talked about, which is a very pretty tutor. Very pretty tutor, and one of the more expensive cards left in the deck that I haven't shown you yet. It is my beautiful copy of Nature's Rhythm. It is a full art, hollow, sorcery. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. You have to pay X and 2 green to pull that off. But what I really like about this is it also is Harmonize, so you can pay X and 4 green, but Harmonize means that I can tap a creature and use its power for the X cost. So, as long as I have something powerful enough to cover the X, I can basically just pay 4 green and get a free creature from my deck as well onto the battlefield, which is pretty nice. Draconic Intervention, 2 and 2 red. I have to exile an instant or sorcery spell from my graveyard in order to play this one, which is kind of difficult since that pile is pretty small, to be honest. But if I can exile one, then this thing will deal X damage to each non-dragon creature, where X is that card's mana value. So essentially, if I exile the right card, for example, not the Wake the Dragon. If I exile, let's say, Inevitable Defeat, just because I haven't shown it the one that I actually would probably exile yet. If I exiled Inevitable Defeat, I would then get to deal 4 damage to all non-dragon creatures. And any of those creatures that die get exiled. So that is a lot of stuff getting exiled for the price of 1 sorcery or instant for me. This also gets exiled, unfortunately, after you use it, so you can't cast it twice. The card that I probably would target in this deck if it was already in my graveyard is this one. Rejoin the Fight. This is a new add-in to my deck, which I really am enjoying the idea of using. I got this one, I'm pretty sure, thanks to Matt Cave Gaming, which I wanted to give him a shout out because this was my pull from the Final Fantasy pack that he gave me. So you get to mill 3 cards, then starting with the next opponent in turn order, each opponent is going to pick 1 creature from my graveyard that hasn't already been chosen, and all those creatures get to be returned to the battlefield under my control. So essentially this is a fun way to get 3 dragons back from my graveyard for the cost of 6. And then I use that 6 to kill everything that isn't a dragon with 6 or less toughness. Using that. And the pièce de résistance in terms of sorceries and instants, because this is the card that is like my win con card. Like if I can get this out while I have a board full of dragons, I'm pretty much guaranteed to win the game, is Teleportal. For blue and red, target creature gets +1/+0 and is unblockable this turn. But if you pay 3 a blue and a red, you can apply that to all of your creatures. So if I have like even 7 or even if I only have like 5 or 6 dragons, presuming there's only 1 or 2 players left and we've played a decent game of Commander, I can probably win the game using this card. Especially if that Atarka is out on the board. Because if that Atarka is out, that means I get to do double strike with all those dragons that attack, which means I'm doing double that amount of damage. And it's all unblockable. So basically, combining Atarka with that card and any number of dragons that is even remotely high is a guaranteed win for me. And yeah, those are the instants and sorceries. And now for the enchantments and the artifacts. Starting with Rising of the Day, so that all my creatures have haste, and all my legendary creatures get +1/+0. There's a decent number of dragons that are legendary. Not a lot, but there's a decent amount. Big thing is, though, all my dragons will automatically have haste, which is really nice. Rhythm of the Wild, another way to make sure that my dragons can't be countered. And all my non-token creatures will have Riot. So when they come into play, I either give them haste, which if this isn't out, that's another way to give them haste, or I can give them a +1 custom counter if this is already out, which is nice. Garruk's Uprising, when it enters the battlefield, if I have a creature with power 4 or greater, I get to draw a card. All my creatures get trample, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters, it doesn't even have to be cast. Whenever it enters, I get to draw a card in addition. So, as I mentioned earlier, I do have some stuff. I do have one spell at the back of this pile that is going to let me flicker things in and out. When it lets me flicker things in and out, if they have power 4 or greater, I get to draw a card each turn, which is nice. Dragon Shadow, I really considered taking this out because I have a card that I would rather replace this with. But the flavor is too good not to include it. And there is one more card in here that I've done the same reasoning. So, the card that I wanted to put in here, I believe is called Fear from the Dark or something like that. And it would give all my creatures fear. But instead, I decided to stick with this one because it's perfectly on flavor. Enchanted creature is +1/+0 and has fear, which means it can't be blocked except by artifact creatures or black creatures. Or an artifact black creature. It can be blocked by, a mixed creature. Whenever a creature with converted mana cost 6 or less comes into play, you can return this thing from your graveyard and enchant that creature. So you may have noticed there's a lot of dragons in here that have pretty high mana values. So I have the ability to get this back repeatedly and give whatever creature I just put into play essentially a version of unblockable, unless somebody's playing black or artifact, which is really cool. Dragonback Assault is so good in this deck. 3 green, blue, and red. Mainly this is the reason why I included the fetch lands in the deck, is for this specifically, because when this thing enters, it deals 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker, which is nice. Basically wipes out all the small stuff. And then, whenever a land enters the battlefield under my control, I get to make a 4/4 dragon creature token with flying. So, essentially, if I put in a fetch land, I get a dragon. Then I crack that fetch land, get a shock land, I get a dragon. So 2 dragons in 1 turn, pretty nice. Breaching Dragonstorm. Whenever this thing enters, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You can cast it without paying its mana cost, if that spell's mana value is 8 or less. If you don't, you get to put it into your hand. Whenever a dragon you control enters, this thing goes back to your hand and then you can do it again, which is insanely good value. Just like this one. Teeming Dragonstorm, 3 and a white. Whenever this thing enters, you get to make 2 white soldier creature tokens. Oh, pardon me, I didn't need the 1/1, I needed a 2/2. Okay, I keep putting that in the wrong direction then. So I should spin that around before I forget again. I have nothing that makes 1/1 white soldiers, I have something that makes 2/2 white soldiers. Pardon me. Blooper. Okay. And then if a dragon enters the battlefield, I get to put this back into my hand, just like the Breaching. Corroding Dragonstorm, following the pattern. And again, all the beautiful borders. Seriously, these borders are so gorgeous. Corroding Dragonstorm, 1 and a black. When it enters, each opponent loses 2 life, I gain 2 life, and then I get to surveil 2. And when a dragon enters, I get to put this thing back into my hand. Dracogenesis is definitely the spell of the deck for sure. In terms of, if I get this on board, basically all my dragons are instantly going on the board. Whatever's in my hand. Because you can cast dragons without paying their mana costs. So this is definitely a card to try and get. And again, beautiful artwork. This one's also a holo. The Teeming Dragonstorm is not, the Corroding is, and the Breaching is not. I also have Call of the Spirit Dragon for Wooburg. All of my dragons will be indestructible. So I can cast them for free. I make them indestructible. And at the beginning of my upkeep, for each color, put a +1/+1 counter on a dragon you control of that color. If you put +1/+1 counters on 5 dragons this way, you win the game, which is not overly difficult to do in this deck. This is the other card, like the Dragon Shadow, that I included because it's too flavorful not to. To be honest, I really want to include, instead of this, a Poison Dart Frog, because I thought an extra mana dork would be better. But this thing is too good for the token that I get, even though the token is an expensive cost to get to it. But let's go. We get 1 and a green for an artifact that says, if I tap this and then tap an untapped creature I control, I get 1 mana of any color. So essentially, I basically would have been able to get the 1 mana of any color by tapping the frog and not had to tap the extra artifact. So it's a little annoying in that sense, but for 3 in Wooburg, I get to sacrifice this thing and make a 4/4 dragon creature token named Reliquary Dragon. that is all colors, has flying, lifelink, and when this token enters, it deals 3 damage to any target. It's a 4/4? I thought it was a 3/3. Nope, it's a 4/4. I'm just crazy. I can only do it at sorcery speed, but still, it's a really good token to have this thing with lifelink, flying, and yeah, what have you. Anywho, like I say, probably should put Poison Dark Frog in here instead, but I just love this card, and I love my Hollow Reliquary Dragon token, so yeah. Dragonstorm Globe, on the other hand, is a definite good one for this one because all my dragons come in with a +1/+1 counter, and it taps for 1 mana of any color. I also have a Mox Jasper in the beautiful border treatment. Not a hollow, unfortunately, but still a very good card. For 0, I get an artifact that taps for 1 mana of any color as long as I have a dragon. I have an Arcane Signet. I probably should have put the Signet before the dragon card, but oh well. The classic taps for 1 mana of any color. And finally, the last card in the deck, and the one that does all the flickering stuff, a beautiful copy of Conjurer's Closet. This thing is gorgeous. It is a hollow. And at the beginning of your end step, you may exile a target creature you control, then return that creature to the battlefield under your control. So the main reason I put this in this deck is specifically because if I bring back something with Rivaz, we'll just go back to Rivaz real quick here. If I bring back a creature with Rivaz, at the end of my turn, I can exile that creature using this to get rid of the, when this creature dies, exile it, clause that's attached to it, because when it comes back into play, it'll be brand new again. So that is the main reason for Conjurer's Closet in here, but it does also help me with any of the ETB dragons as well, clearly. But that's the main reason for that combo. And I know that's a really silly thing in some people's opinion, because why would you want to include some, only that one specific card in that? But I really like that, the way it is. So that is my 5-color dragon deck. And like I say, I'm just waiting on that Blood Crypt from Shomanuchi to essentially complete the deck as is currently. But I really would like to get 3 more fetches and the 4 other shocklands that I'm missing in the colors that I have currently in the deck, because that would just really complete the mana base in such a beautiful way. Anywho, let's open this and get out of here because I want to get home to Kaiba. It is an American pack, so I believe there is no pack trick. And I am correct. Okay. Token on the back. Let's put the token up front and see what we get first. Oh, the token on the back is apparently a pathetic token that means absolutely nothing. Yay. We start with an Izumi Linebreaker. 1 for a Rat Warlock with 1. That is a 1/1, and when it dies, you get to make a red mercenary creature token. The mercenaries tap to give target creature +1/+0 until end of turn, which is kind of nice. So you get an extra body when this one dies for 1. I'm not going to knock that. That's pretty solid all around. Seize the Secrets. Costs 1 less to cast if you've committed a crime this turn. Draw 2 cards. By the way, just in case you don't know where I got this pack from, if you missed the bonus episode of 1 to 100 that I posted on Saturday, that is where this pack came from. I bought one of those Dollarama bundles because I had a really rough week, but I made it through without yelling at any of my coworkers, so I thought I deserved a little treat. So I bought one of those $4 bundles, and this was in there. So it is actually possible to pull a pack from a $4 bundle at the Dollarama, just in case you're Canadian and you have a chance to buy one. Next up, Trained Arnix. I like this one, actually. I'm glad to get an extra copy of this. 1 and a white for a 3/1. I don't like the 3/1, obviously, but when it attacks while saddled, it gets first strike, and you get to scry 1, which is pretty nice. And it only costs 2 to saddle, so it's not too expensive to do the ability. Next up, Reckless Lackey. 1 for a 1/2 with first strike and haste. That's pretty solid. Ooh, it's a Goblin Pirate. Nice. I do have a Pirates deck that I eventually want to build, so this is going to be a very nice include for that deck. Pay 2 in a red, sacrifice this thing, draw a card, and create a treasure token. Damn, that's value for sure. Next up, Ankle Biter. Death Touch, 1/1 for 1 green. I'm not going to say no to that. So far, I think Reckless Lackey is the best card in the pack, though. Peerless Rope Master, 4 and a blue for a 4/4. Okay. When it enters the battlefield, return up to one target tapped creature to its owner's hand. That could be fun. You could set somebody back pretty solid if you sent their, like, card that they just spent, like, all their mana last turn back to their hand. That could be fun. Ariet's Lullaby, 1 and a white. Destroy target tap creature, you gain 2 life. Okay. Gila Courser, 2 and a red for a 4/2. Lizard Mount. Ooh, another mount. Nice. That's 2 mounts in the pack. Pretty good. I don't think I have this one yet. When it attacks while saddled, exile the top card of your library until your next turn. You may play that card. Alright. I'm not usually a fan of that kind of mechanic, but I mean, when you're only saddling it for 1, that's not bad. Badlands Revival. Ooh. 3 a black and a green. Return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Return up to 1 target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Nice! Oh, that is sick. I know exactly what deck I'm going to probably end up putting that into, to be perfectly honest. I have a deck that I'm meaning to upgrade a little bit more. That is going to be essentially my other bracket 4 deck eventually. But yeah. That probably will go into that because that is pretty kick-ass. Full steam ahead. Does that beat the Lackey, do you think? Do you think that beats the Lackey? I don't know. I really like that Lackey. I think I'm keeping the Lackey up front. 3 and 2 green. Until end of turn, each creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample. And this creature can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Ooh. That's pretty sick. That's pretty sick. Okay, I like that. Inspiring Vantage. I was hoping for a desert, but I'll take this. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. And taps for red or white. Not bad, not bad. Does full steam ahead beat the pirate? I think it does. I think the top 3 so far are these 3. But we did just hit the land, so we're about to hit something good. Let's see what we got. We got Fierce Retribution, 1 and a white. Cleave, 5 and a white. Ouch. Destroy target attacking creature, so it costs a lot to get rid of that attacking part. Probably not going to end up using that because of that reason, but I mean, it is still decent for the 1 and a white. And it is instant speed, of course. Reach for the Sky. Enchanted creature gets +3/+2 and has reach. When this thing is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you get to draw a card. Not bad all around, not bad all around. Is hollow. Is very pretty artwork. And the last card, do we get a big hit? No, we get a Plains. I thought we already got our land for the pack, but apparently not. Oh well. I guess our rare must have been that Inspiring Vantage then. That's kind of a little bit sad, but all in all, still not going to kick this pack out of bed. Got some pretty cool stuff and some new cards. So, that's all I got for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Super Deck Sunday on a Monday. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode and that you guys will continue to tune in for the future ones. In the meantime, in between time, one more big shout out to my friend Shomanucci and to Matt Cave Gaming for the cards that are in this deck and about to be in this deck. And to, let's give a shout out as well to Smith Stack because Smith Stack is doing pretty awesome as well. He's pulling lots of cool stuff and I am excited to see him keep growing his channel as well. All right. Much love to you all from Kaiba the Pug, who's at home, and myself to you in the car. Take care. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.